just giving you guys a heads up. So anyways, we are going to do some Over the Wire today. And what that is, what Over the Wire is a website that hosts several infosec oriented war games, which are essentially kind of puzzles or games, like one-off kind of games that you can do that are in the infosec spirit that can be challenging. And we're going to be doing specifically, we're going to be doing what Over the Wire suggests, which is they have this neat, handy little order suggestion here, which is they say do Bandit first, and then kind of walk through some of the others, and then Leviathan, Natas, or Krypton are three different kind of branches that you can go through. So Leviathan is the next step in Linux. Natas is intro kind of to web app pen testing. I haven't ever done Krypton. I assume it's probably AppSec stuff. I know they have some exploit development, vulnerability discovery kind of war games here, and maybe Krypton's the first one of that. We can actually check out. It doesn't say. Oh, maybe it's a crypto war game. Interesting. But we're going to do Bandit and Leviathan, and the reason why is I get a lot of questions often about the OSCP and PWK certification class extravaganza, and most of those questions do not revolve around questions asking about the test, which is awesome because they're not allowed to ask me about that. Well, I'm not allowed to answer that. Let's say that. But what I get a lot actually is, am I ready for this? Is this, what do I need to have to be ready for this, etc. And one of the prerequisites is you have to have a pretty good understanding of Linux. If you have a pretty good understanding of Linux and Windows command line, at least passable, which is where I was really good at what I feel is pretty good with Linux command line, and then so at Windows. But if you got those two things and then a brief understanding of Python, which I used Code Academy to learn a little bit of Python for the class, that's enough. The PWK is called an intro level penetration testing class. And that's not to say that it's just an intro level technology class and you'll learn pen testing. It's not an entry-level tech class. You really do need to know some operating system and some networking stuff. But if you do have that foundation, then you can go ahead and go with PWK. So we're going to kind of go over some stuff that teaches you some foundational skills in Linux today. And I've done this in the past. I've done Bandit a while ago, and Leviathan probably close to 4 or 5 years ago now. But so I do have some notes on how these are solved, but really the purpose for this is I'm going to be kind of going over the solutions and maybe a couple different ways to solve each thing, each challenge, and really just going through the basics. So the way Over the Wire war games work, and one of the cool things about them is the previous video series I've been doing was a boot to root, which you have to boot up a vulnerable VM and kind of play around with it. And it doesn't require VMware. You can use VirtualBox sometimes, but it requires some sort of significant setup to get going and then start interacting with it. Whereas with Over the Wire, you're SSHing the entire time. So you can use something like what I'm using here, which is the Bash for Windows. To SSH in, you can use PuTTY or Secure CRT or any of these dozens of other like SSH clients for whatever operating system you're using. Of course, Linux and Mac have them built in. So does BSD and any other Nix flavor, but for people wanting to learn Linux, it's not always an option to install Linux or get VMware running and install Linux. Maybe they're not quite there yet. They're maybe a little bit intimidated, and getting SSH up and running is a lot easier. So we go to Bandit Level 0, and it tells us that we're going to be SSHing to Bandit, and then we're going to be using the username of whatever level we're trying to get into. And one of the cool things here that they've set up, I don't know when they set this up, but certainly not the first time I went through Bandit, they have helpful reading material. So as you kind of go along, it tells you, like, gives you a starting place if you're completely lost, right? So here, the only prerequisite is that we need to know how to SSH. I'm going to assume that if you're watching InfoSec videos on Twitch that you at least can do that, so I won't go too in depth on how SSH works, but we'll go ahead and set that up, and we'll use the -L flag. It's just an alternate way to specify the user that you want to log in as. A lot of people know the login at and then wherever you're logging into. I use the -L mostly out of habit, but specifically on OverTheWire because then you have your username at the end. So when you want to do level 2 or level 1, you hit up and then level 1, level 2, same thing. So we'll go ahead and log in here, and it gives us the password as Bandit0. The moving forward, the password will be you will discover the password as you solve the level, and then you'll use that password to move on to the next level to log in. So if we go to level 0 to level 1, it doesn't tell us what the password is anymore. So if we kind of look around, the first thing I always do in these things is kind of look around, and there's a README here. So if we just cat README, cat is a output command. So you cat, and then it's the input, the next argument that you give it is the thing that it's going to display out to standard out for you. So that's this here. Another command that can display files. Just a couple other ways to do this. Less is a command that will output files for you. So you go in here, and it doesn't just quit you out immediately like cat does. Instead, you're inside of this less program, and on something this small, it's not that big of a deal, but you can do different commands like if you type a slash and then some sort of input, it'll search for that. So I'm going to look for BOJ, and it's like there's BOJ. Or it'll even understand regex, so you can say I just want stuff that starts with BOJ. It knows that, or we want $my $ for ends with, or sorry, $1 ends with. There it is. You can with certain commands you can do a colon and then a number, and that'll take you to whatever line number you input. So if this was a 600 line document, you know that you want to go to line 30, you can just do :30. A lot of these commands are similar in VI, which we'll do next. So VI is an actual editor as opposed to a like just an output or reading command. So we can kind of move our cursor around. It's a multi-mode editor. So right now we're just kind of in this generic function mode where you can't really type anything in. You can input commands though. So this is where you can do I want to go to line 1. I want to search for UNN, and it takes you to where UNN is. You can do different commands like this. If you want to interact with the file, you use you hit I, and I puts you in this insert mode. There's a couple other called editing modes. There's a couple others, but I is the one that you end up using the most, unless you become like super VI guru. You hit escape. Colon is now not just colon is more than just skip to a line, which is what I said earlier. It's actually a command as well. So you can do Q to quit, you can do WQ to right quit, or W just to save. If you saw in the beginning, it's not going to show us now, but if you saw in the beginning at the bottom here, it was saying read only, probably because, oops, Probably because if we look at it, README is actually owned by Bandit 1, and we're Bandit 0, right? So Bandit 1 can read and write, but these are permissions. So this will tell you if it's a directory or not, or a symlink or not. The first 3 are your permissions for the owner. So read, write, execute. The next 3 are the same permissions, read, write, execute, for the group. And then the last 3 are permissions, read, write, execute for everyone, literally everyone on the system. So since this is owned by Bandit and we can only read as Bandit 0 group, we wouldn't be able to actually edit the file. But you can see now you see the read-only. There was a comic that's been floating around recently on Twitter of how do you get a random string, get a web designer in VI and ask them to quit the file because they will just type everything. The answer is WQ, right quit, or just Q for quit. If you saw earlier, you saw me do Q exclamation point. That means if you make a change and don't write it, VI gets mad. It's like, hey, wait a minute, you made some changes. Are you sure? The exclamation point will quit no matter what. So, and then along with less, there is more. More actually came before less, so it's a it has far fewer features than less does. And the joke is that when less came out, more was already there, and the whole point is that less is more. Some old graybeard jokes for you. But so more will print out the file for you. If it's a smaller field or a much larger file, then you could then it would drop you into this sort of, where less, it drop you into a similar interface as less. It would kind of look like this, but you wouldn't have a lot of the like search functionality or some of the functionality that I showed you before. So anyways, that's enough playing around with outputting files. Oh, you can also tail a file. Tail is just the end. So if you're looking at a log file, oops. If you're looking at a log file and you just want to see the last 10 lines or even just the last however many lines. So say I just want the last 100 lines of a file, I can do tail -n 100 and then the file. And you can also do this cool thing called follow. And all that does is it follows the end of the file. So it'll print the last 10 lines, and then as new lines get added to the file, it'll show you more, as they get written. This is amazing as sysadmins looking through log files, wanting to see things as they happen. Many other uses as well, as I'm sure you can start imagining. But tail's super cool. So obviously in the last 10 lines is the first line. So that's another way to output a file. Dozens of other ways, but those are probably the most common, right? So we've got this password here for Bandit 1. So we'll go ahead and exit Bandit 0. Let's take a look at Bandit 1. We'll put the password in there, and now we're in. So if we look here, it gives us some commands that we may need to solve the level. This is the old way to hint. This is the way it was when I first found OverTheWire, maybe 1.5 billion years ago, or however old I am. More realistically, probably like 5-ish. So it just kind of gave you a series of commands that you would need to solve the next several levels, so that it didn't point it out directly. But this will tell you specifically, like, kind of give you some reading material on how to solve the challenge, which I think is pretty neat, especially with some more advanced CTFs. Like, it's almost more of a game of the CTF writer trying to figure out, okay, what weird nuance can I just throw out there, and you have no real starting point. Giving the starting point is sweet. So we can check this out. If we look, there's just a dash, right? There's this file in here, probably the similar kind of a challenge as the previous one, but instead of being readme, it's just dash. And if we do cat dash, well, that's nothing, right? Because what are dashes used for? Dashes are used to do flags. So it's waiting. It's like, hey, you didn't finish that option flag. It's a special character. So if we look here, we see, various special characters, right? Dot, dot. Can we search for dash? Okay, so the double prefixes long option commands. Single dash prefixes short option commands. So that's a problem, right? We need to figure out how to escape dashes. Usage of dash in place of a file name. Will mean standard in or standard out. Okay. As a lot of programs use. So this is just a built-in using the dash as a special character instead of file names. It appears to be a built-in of some stuff. How to cat a name starts with dash. Let's check this out. So so what we're maybe we got off on a tangent. Maybe I could have just explained this easier. When you have special characters like this in a file, like, even this bash.logout, right? Well, underscores aren't really a normal file, but let's just open another here. So I'm going to echo hello world to a file called need help. So if you notice, I put a backslash here in front of the space. And what backslashes do in many different Linux contexts and many computing contexts in general is that they escape something. So if you have a special character that is normally meant to do something, you can backslash it and be like, no, this is literally just a space in whatever context I'm operating in. So if you need help. So this is actually a file, okay? But if I did echo hello world need help. So now if I, there's a file called need that I can cat. Oh, that's funny. It added help to the end of it. Is there a help file? There's not. Okay. So these spaces normally do something. They separate things, right? They separate the echo command from the input. They separate the whole echo syntax from the redirect. They separate the redirect from the target, and then bring back help to input again, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of weird. But so we need this backslash to escape these special characters. So if we do something like this, we should be escaping that and saying, no, this isn't a standard in redirect. This isn't a shortcut that cat understands. This is just a slash. So please give it to me. Now, maybe we need to say in this directory. So now we're explicitly saying, hey, and this might actually even work differently. So this is these dots that you see here in every directory, they're shortcuts for things. So a single dot means this directory here, this place that I already am. A double dot is previous directory. That's my parent. So if you pwd So you can see here's our directory structure here, home bandit 1. The ... and I'm not sure if we have permission to do this, but oh yeah, so ... brings us into home. You've probably seen this in various books or even used it yourself and not really understood why. You just knew that the magical syntax of cd ... brings you up one. But these are just shortcuts. These are special things that help you navigate around. And dot is important because it's local. So if you've ever heard somebody say you run a command by doing /, the reason that that's working is that you're explicitly stating, in my local directory is a thing, and I want you to run that thing instead of looking through the path. So let's go back into Bandit 1. We should be able to cat / dash, because it's no longer just the dash. It's not the special character the cat understands. It's the local directory dash. Let's see if this works. Hey, and it worked. Cool. So explicitly defining files is important, can be important for many things, including these weird special character files. Additionally, we could have done something like, instead of just doing dot, like using dot, we could give the full explicit path. So bandit 1, and then we could also do something silly called, we use the tilde, which is, this is a shortcut for my home directory. Whatever my home directory is, that's where I want to be. So you can do cd tilde, or I want to run something out of my home directory tilde, and that works as well. So just a couple shortcuts for you. All right, so we have this password for bandit 2. Let's get out of bandit 1.